connecting.
This is what I was looking for.
There we go. And we're live. Oh, you got your cam fixed?
I mean, it's a trash backdrop. And I don't know if I should be trying to align myself with the phone one, like if most people are going to be phone viewing.
All right.
Yeah.
No, it's cozy. It's cozy.
Nice. All
right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first live stream of Golden Ashes. We have special guest Boys World Fashion from the White Hodge Twins and EWBSX joining us. I've gone over to their channel a couple times to do some live streaming, so they are coming over here. So this is the christening stream for both of us on this channel. Tonight we're going to be covering, specifically, we're going to be revisiting Julius Evola's Ride the Tiger. We left off part 1 after chapter 3. Tonight we're going to be covering specifically chapter 4, the title of which is From the Precursors of Nihilism to the Lost Youth and Protest Movements. And so we might get into a little bit of contemporary geo and American politics, given all the lost youths that have been gallivanting about from sea to shining sea and their protest movements.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start with Boys World Fashion has not heard this yet, so this is a live react for him. I'm gonna read directly from the text, as we often do over here on Golden Ashes. So Julius Evola, picking up here on paragraph 3, he says, "In recent times, the fracture has extended from the moral plane to the existential and ontological. Values that were previously questioned and shaken only by a few precursors in relative isolation now lose all relevance for the general consciousness in everyday life. One is no longer dealing with problems," air quotes around that, "but with a state of affairs in which the immoralist pathos of yesterday's rebels seems increasingly old-fashioned and incongruous. For some time, a good part of Western humanity has considered it a natural thing for existence to lack any real meaning, and for it not to be ordered by any higher principle, arranging their lives in the most bearable, if at least not most disagreeable way that it can. Of course, this has its counterpart and inevitable consequences in an inner life that is more and more reduced, formless, feeble, and elusive, and in a growing dissolution of any uprightness of character. Another aspect of the same process is a regime of compensations and anesthetics that is no less deceptive for not being recognized as such. A character in Ernest Hemingway summarizes it when he says, 'Religion is the opium of the people, and now economics is the opium of the people. And of the people, along with patriotism, what about sexual intercourse? That's an opium of the people. But drink was a sovereign opium of the people. Oh, an excellent opium. Although some prefer the radio, another opium of the people. A cheap one.'" So, how are we feeling about that?
Well, I think I understood. I mean, this might be an excellent opportunity for me to be to don my dunce cap.
Okay.
And check my understanding of the whole arc of that excerpt. Because I don't see the connection between the Hemingway quote at the end. I mean, I understand the basics, which is that there are manifold ways of anesthetizing oneself, and they're inherently detached from meaning by themselves, like in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Sex and drink and the radio. I thought that was I didn't expect the passage to end there, but it was a great stopping point.
Yeah.
And then the first part with Evola talking about here's where you can check me. Did he say that the nihilistic the loss or the rejection of a moralistic universal framework, that time is passing, like that the time of the nihilist is passing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually, I'm really happy you caught on that.
All right.
Because Evola wrote this book in 1961, so it's right before the free love hippie movement of the 60s. It's right before the sexual revolution. And so we look back at like the early 1960s before those revolutions started, or we look back at the 1950s, and we would not think that time is the bedrock foundation in hindsight of a nihilistic revolution. But from Evola's vantage point, from his perspective, it's already over, and we're getting ready to move from passive nihilism into active nihilism, where people readily start destroying the things around them, society around them, because they've lost this sense of pathos, they've lost this sense of belief, of identity. And it's something that a lot of the authors that I talk about over here kind of have this, in the scientific community, they say on the shoulders of giants, right? Like, oh, Stephen Hawking did what he did because he stood on the shoulders of giants, of
Yeah.
Einstein or Newton or whoever,
Even
Um,
Hawking sat on the shoulders of giants. That was
it's so true. So true. He sat on the shoulders of
he
giants.
rode around on those shoulders of some giant.
Yeah, so true. But yeah, so it's for him that he, almost prophesied the 1960s and the 1970s movements, the youth and revolt movements, because they hadn't happened yet. When he wrote this, he's like, oh, this is in full swing. Any day now, we're going to see total societal collapse. And it took another 5-6 years to a decade
Mhm.
to get to that point. And he's actually going to go in here in the later pages. He actually starts talking about things that your average non like not philosophically or identitarianly plugged in person would necessarily point to as the issues. So he's going to look at the surrealism art movement, and he's going to be
Dude,
like,
so
the
crazy that
these are
I
the
mean,
devil.
I hate to yeah, I'm having so many brain blasts, and I feel like this is probably the juncture where I can get them out as unobtrusively as possible,
Yeah,
because I know you got a sketch for where this is going. My contribution, again, with the dunce cap, with the one who's not classically trained and versed in the philosophical movements and writings, I could tell you I did an essay for an introduction to film class I took. It was either a graduate level class I took as a senior in undergrad, or else it was like a throwaway class that I took during my master's studies, because I really was just in it to get another piece of paper. I wasn't in it because I wanted to be a researcher or whatever. But I
right,
took
right,
this
right.
film course, and I remember talking about the Sandlot taking place in I think the summer of '62, which
Yeah,
was spiritually the bookend of the '50s,
right.
and all of the sincerity and all of the inherent meaning and all of the like. You could take the individual characters and say that one of them has a more or less sarcastic edge or something, but in the context of the decades to come afterwards, that's laughable.
Yeah,
Everyone was. It was like the matrix that they all swam around in had this fundamental uh the given was that everybody is in it to be the to be I don't know, an American or a
yeah,
boy or
yeah. Like your
a
super
boy becoming
trad
a man.
white picket fence.
They had
Yeah,
nothing to even compare it to. It just was what it was, and you knew against that backdrop what a freak antisocial outcast was and why they were designated as such. But they didn't even show up in the movie. There were no
right.
subversives. It was just the boys, right? And then the
Yeah,
dad who was, or the stepdad who was distant, and there was the old blind baseball star of yesteryear who was a
Darth
legend,
Vader. Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, right? And anyway, when I knew nothing of history, but I remember that that's when I first learned of that dividing mark prior to the assassination of John Kennedy, prior to the um, Vietnam War, prior to the free love hippie movement that you were talking about.
Yeah.
all those things served to like mass traumatize the
Yeah.
American populace. And you're saying that when Evola wrote this, he wasn't even like he wasn't conceiving of the chaos circus of hell that was around the corner.
Right.
And he was saying the time of the nihilists is past. And that's not me clowning on him. It's just like it's funny
No, no,
that
he's saying he was looking at the surrealist art movement. We'll get into it here in a second, and like
okay,
the 1920s, like the swinging Art Deco stuff, and he was like,
sure.
yeah, this was godless nihilism. This was hedonism. He's prophesying those revolt movements of the 60s and 70s, saying this is
Mhm.
what's coming next, and it's going to destroy
I
society
see. Yeah.
because we've already done hedonism for hedonism's sake, and it led directly into 2 world wars, and European man doesn't have the spiritual grounding or the moral or philosophical grounding to cope with what he just witnessed.
Mhm.
And his institutions are stretched to their absolute limit. He's, we're desperately trying to create new institutions to cope with what just happened and
Yeah.
to, you get this post-war consensus. The hot button topic of today now is the post-war consensus. And, neither you or I were alive
Yeah.
during that time period. So, we didn't see the
However,
trauma.
and this is the second point that I was going to need to get out of my mouth so it didn't linger. There's the concept of standing on the shoulders of giants, and then there's the unwitting converse of that, which looking back, I can't believe that I didn't see it. When I was in like the 8th grade going into the 9th grade,
Yeah.
or maybe I had just started the 9th grade, Napoleon Dynamite had come out, and I
Yeah.
couldn't explain why I was so attracted to its uh, idiosyncrasies or whatever. So many people were. It was a phenomenon. But
Yeah.
after that, I found myself looking down on anything that was orderly and traditional and sensible. And I couldn't tell you where that came from. I just thought that's a part of my identity. That's like an inborn facet of my identity is that I'm all about
Like the
zagging on them.
irony. Yeah.
The irony and just randomness, like just and I know that's so cringe to say because the word got overplayed in the concept of like, oh, it's so
Right.
random. But I really was like, I'm gonna be the guy who's unbound. I have no identity. I'm completely and I was like reveling in that. And
Yeah.
now in the world of TikTok where people do like little pranks where you walk up to someone in the mall and do some absurd thing to throw them for a loop and you get it on camera and it's
Yeah.
so sickening.
Yeah.
That was my bread and butter whenever I was in like middle school and early high school. It was
Yeah.
just about like the meme about jester maxing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like lording it over to someone that you're causing them to be uncomfortable because they don't have a category for your behavior or whatever. So
Right.
anyway, I hate to go off on one of these tangents,
Oh,
but
you're good. Tangent away.
looking back, I feel like I wasn't standing on the shoulders of giants. I was more laying in a deeper gutter that was downstream from 5 other gutters culturally, but I
Yeah.
didn't have the contextual framework to understand that something had led me to like want to revel in uh uh I don't even have a word for it, but to revel in being unbound and totally free and my
Yeah.
own person.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And then
mean,
now when I look back, I'm like, yeah, what it's like, yeah, I don't even know all the absurdist stuff that now evokes a disgust response in me.
mhm.
When I first perceived it, I was like, no, that's what I'm all about because there's something freewheeling about the whole thing
Yeah.
that was like attractive to my
Yeah. I mean,
self-consciousness.
I don't know if you had a similar experience, but yeah, I've mentioned on here before that I'm an Orthodox catechumen, and uh, Boys World Fashion over here is a full-fledged member of the Orthodox Church. And when I was coming into um, Orthodoxy, you a lot of times for people who grow up Christian or grow up nominally Christian, like Protestant, but their parents don't take it serious. They just want their kids to have like some set of rules and guidelines. And if you're afraid of God, maybe you'll listen to me when I tell you to clean your room, like that sort of thing.
Mhm.
When you first discover atheism, like, you're 14, you're like, maybe Sky Daddy not real. and
Yeah.
like I can do whatever I want. It's a no holds barred life, and I
Yeah.
can just do whatever I want. And then as you grow and as you get some experience under your belt, you start to realize that like a good way to frame it is my 6-year-old daughter is currently learning art, so she's like learning about the rules of art, and she's learning, some music stuff. And uh, she was like, I can just do whatever I want on this page. And I was like, okay, yeah, you can.
Mm-hmm.
But let's look back at the textbook and what did it say about the rules of, drawing the lines in certain ways? Like, you do it your way first, and then we'll follow the rules and we'll see which one is a better picture. Obviously, when you're working within the confines of the rules, you're going to produce a better product. It's going to have the spirit of what you intended in it. And Evola, I mean, we could just read the passage. He talks about that with the absurdist and the surrealist art movements being the catalyzing force in the West, because for whatever reason, artists, authors, poets, actors, these people are plugged into the soul of a people in a way that like your average person isn't. So they're able to almost see what's coming in the winds, what's blowing in the cultural winds, where the ship is steering, and whether they're the catalyzing force for it or they're just able to pick up on that tide before anyone else.
There's also a third option that is like a sample bias, that the artists that are elevated and platformed to be the best and greatest, like the ones that you will hear of, are selected because they reflect the spirit of the people. You know what I'm saying?
Not to jump too far ahead, that's chapter 5.
Oh, nice. Me having not read the book, but
yeah, he does talk about that, how these artists and these like absurd nihilists and whatever, the people that you see with their bricks and Molotovs on the street, like they're true believers in the sense that whatever it is that the system is asking them to revolt against, they are true believers in that thing, like the BLM protester or the anti-ICE protester in Minnesota. They're true believers in the thing. They're the ones going out and laying their lives down.
Yeah.
But the politician class, and even the people above the politician class, like the Epstein types, they don't believe it.
Yeah, and you could say the same thing for operatives who are extremely skilled and patriotic, whether they're an elite soldier, a special forces soldier, or if they're a CIA field officer. Like, true believers is the word that they use, and yet to make the logical jump that just because there are so many of them, and maybe the vast majority are in good faith and patriotic, and that they're serving according to their ideals, and they are true believers, doesn't mean that there's not a hidden hand that's using it. And I hate to sound cynical, and it's not about
after January 31st and that Epstein drop, I don't think none of my viewers would fault you.
They're not going to shoot me for suggesting that there are bad actors and with the levers of power or whatever. And it's a shame,
the zeitgeist has shifted for sure. So with that, let's pick up and see what Evola has to say about surrealism. So picking up immediately after radio being a cheap opium of the masses and alcohol being a sovereign, excellent opium of the masses, I have to agree on that point at least.
Yeah, same.
So he says, but once this sensation occurs, the facade may start to waver, the assemblage to collapse, and the dissolution of values is followed by the denial of everything one has resolved in order to make up for the senselessness of a life henceforth reduced to itself. So kind of just to interject here, he's saying that what happens once the hedonism of the 1920s fades away, once the hedonism of I can do whatever I want, once the guardrails are off and you go through that ecstatic exaltation, eventually you wake up from the hangover and you're like, oh, life is only life. and it's actually not that great unless there's something beyond me pulling me towards it.
Mm-hmm.
So in Orthodoxy, we would call this theosis as the goal of an individual person's life.
Yeah, and to bring that to dunce cap that down, theosis can seem exultant and like something that we can't apprehend, and yet the parable of the prodigal son, you see that theosis equals union with and communion with the Father. It's just like to be with the Father
Right.
as a son in the household, in the estate. And you see the whole story that you just laid out, which is he said, hey, you know what would be awesome? A bunch of prostitutes and a bunch of alcohol.
Yeah.
and
And then
then he did it.
he wakes up in the pig pen covered in
Yeah.
feces. He goes,
Yeah.
man.
And then he says, I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
And there's actual meaning in it. Like the family is, anyway, it's like it's a microcosm of the real.
Yeah. And, part of Avola's point is there isn't a mechanism for that wake up call to happen on a civilizational level. It has to happen at an individual level. And we've been seeing that. I think, I'm a testament to it as what I've been coming through and to find orthodoxy. And I think there's been a huge uptick in new converts.
Mm-hmm.
And then as well as just like, again, with the Epstein thing, how many people have you seen recently be like, okay, yeah, God is the only solution to this? A lot, at least from the circles of the internet I'm on. And then Nietzsche also has a really good point about this specific thing about nihilism. And he says that man is, and I'm paraphrasing here, I have the book, it's just not, it's on the shelf. I'm not going to go get it. He says that man is an infinite creature and he will either ascend beyond himself infinitely. So from the Orthodox perspective, we would say that is theosis, or he's never going to just stay where he is. Rather, what he'll do is he'll turn that spirit to progress eternally inward, and he'll just fall ever deeper into himself.
Dude, did I ask you if you read The Great Divorce, C.S. Lewis?
You asked me, what was it, last weekend? I haven't read it yet. I've read this.
This is not a criticism. I'm just saying if you got the big brain books and then you get this thin little whatever, it narrativizes the thing you just said about a person, their whatever trajectory they're on, they become unbound. So if you want to use space may be fake and gay, but it's an excellent it's an excellent image where once you break out of the atmosphere, you have no drag and no resistance. Your inertia will carry you in the trajectory you're already going. So the man who wishes to be unbound will get his wish, but he's only going to find out that the trajectory is deeper and darker and more infinite and eternal than he could have. One gets more than he bargains for. And gravity's not such a bad thing.
Yeah. So then Avola says, then comes the existential theme of nausea and disgust, of the void that is sensed behind the whole system of bourgeois life, the theme of the absurdity of the whole new earthbound civilization. Where the sensation is most acute, there occur forms of existential trauma in states that have been called, and these are in quotes, the spectrality of events, the degradation of objective reality, existential alienation. One also notices that the sporadic experience of intellectuals and artists of the past become modes of behavior occurring in the natural course of things for certain groups of the younger generation. So what used to be radical and fringe in previous generations for like that outcasted artist class that we were just speaking about is now the new normal for each concurrent generation of youths. Only yesterday, it was a matter of writers, painters, and those damned poets, living on the edge, often alcoholics, mingling their talents with the climate of existential dissolution. and with irrational rebellion against established values. Typical in this regard is the case of Rimbaud, whose extreme form of rebellion was the renunciation of his own genius, poetic silence, and immersion in practical activity. Another is the case of L'Autrement, driven by existential trauma to the morbid exaltation of evil, horror, and formless elementarity. Maldoror, a personage in one of his poems, says that he has received life like a wound and has been forbidden suicide from curing his injury. Then there are those isolated individuals given to adventure, like Jack London and the early Ernst Jünger, who seek new horizons on distant lands and seas. While, for others, everything seems in order, safe and sound, and under the banner of science, they hymn the triumphal march of progress, scarcely troubled by the noise of the anarchist bombs. And so then he goes on. I guess we'll keep reading unless you have something to add to that.
No, I mean, I do, but I'm afraid I don't know how to be a good guest.
It's so the problem I run into with Evola is he's so poignant. Like, what could you possibly add?
Well, the problem with me is because of how narrowly exposed I am and how C.S. Lewis brained I am. He's all I read when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it's almost like I've been exposed to a lot of these ideas and they keep popping up. And I keep trying. My brain keeps wanting to drive it that direction, but I know that this is not an evaluation, but an exploration specifically of Ride the Tiger, specifically of one specific chapter. So I'm trying not to derail.
No,
but if
okay.
you'll allow me to make another, Get the Great Divorce, The Abolition of Man, which is nonfiction, and it's really just a collection of a few long essays that are sequentially. It's a proof type of thing, like one builds on another. It's a long essay, syllogism of an essay.
Yeah.
But it's called The Abolition of Man because man per se in his fullness, body, soul, spirit, and with being eternally and irrevocably bound up with the eternal Tao, or however way you want to put it, that the movement away from that and to deny objective reality and truth and beauty and all that. Anyway, I'm gonna lose. He can say it better than I have, and I pulled up just a couple quotes, but I'll just read the one. And I wish I could tell you also, for context, what year he published The Abolition of Man. But this is one of my favorites. He said, "You cannot go on," and this is why it was perfect after you said about the scientists, or after Evola.
Yeah.
About the scientists are content to go on with their work despite the horrific negative consequences that are
right.
Yeah, that should be obvious, but they're not because they keep being science brained and seeing through things. So Lewis's quote was, "You cannot go on seeing through things forever. The whole point of seeing through something is to see something through it. It is good that the window should be transparent because the street or garden beyond it is opaque. How if you saw through the pattern? How if you saw through the garden too? It is of no use trying to see through first principles. If you see through everything, then everything is transparent. But a wholly transparent world is an invisible world. To see through all things is the same as not to see." So if the bedrock truism that they land at is that nothing is true, and that everything, and that the best art you can do is to tear something up and to break it down to its nothingness, and to also go science brained, the whole idea that if you keep zooming in on matter, you find out that matter's made of unmatter, matter's made of energy, and then you say, oh, well, at its deepest part, there's mass per se, but it's not a solid.
Yeah.
And so that as a metaphor for what we're trying to do by breaking down meaning and by disassembling social norms as if social norms are apropos of nothing is not just an exercise in futility. It is a suicide mission, and it only drives one to complete despair. And I know on my show that I was trying to start up, and I think we mentioned, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was off camera. We were talking about Aleister Crowley and who's the other fellow that Anton LaVey.
Yeah. Oh,
That
yeah. That was it. That
if
was
they,
after liturgy on
yeah,
the.
if a person devotes his life to disassembling the world in a revolt against all of the institutions that
Normative hierarchies.
right, if you keep doing that, then when you finally are enlightened to the point where you go, "Oh, wait, those were all things that shan't be tinkered with." Well, you can't put them back together. It's too
Mhm.
late, and you've destroyed your soul in the process,
Yeah.
and you've become a fiend, and you thought you were achieving freedom, but you didn't realize you're putting a little leash around your neck, and now you're gonna be, uh, in the province of demons
Yeah.
in a
I
way
mean,
that
Anton LaVey's last words were literally, "Oh no, something is wrong," and then he dropped dead.
yeah, that's what I'm not trying to put too fine of a point on it or over sensationalize it,
Yeah, it's
but
objectively horrifying.
yes. And no, I'm saying that is horrifying in the most, like, obvious, overt way,
Yeah.
but the artists and the philosophers and such
Yeah.
that are doing it in a
The
more
people who
dignified
the people who enable it at a societal level.
yeah, it's just as bad. Like,
Yeah.
at least the Satanists are, like, overtly saying, "Hey, I dabble in all kinds of dark ritual, and I'm trying to lean into the immoral so that I can free myself from the bindings of Christian
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah.
At least they're telling it like it is. But the
Right.
person who writes these tomes on how they're seeing through the God delusion and all that, they're leading others astray en masse,
Yeah.
and they're doing it with like an ascot on, or they're doing it with a smoking jacket and a pipe in hand.
Yeah.
It's worse. It's like
Yeah.
sicker.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Um, so then he says, already, and I'm going to read this paragraph, one more paragraph, and then I'm going to jump pages. Uh,
Mhm.
already, after World War One, processes of processes of this type have begun to spread, announcing the final phases of nihilism. At first, such harbingers remained at the margins of life, on the frontier zone of art. The most significant and radical of them was perhaps Dadaism. I don't know much about Dadaism as an art movement.
Me neither.
The end result of the deepest impulses that had nourished the various movements of avant-garde art. But Dadaism negated the very categories of art, showing the transition to the chaotic forms of a life deprived of any rationality, of any restraint, or any coherence. It was not just the acceptance, but the exaltation of the absurd and the contradictory, of nonsense and pointlessness taken just as they are. Surrealism took up similar themes, in part when it refused to adapt life to the derisory conditions of all existence down here. Sometimes the path was in fact followed to the very end, at which the suicide of surrealists like Vacher, Crevel, and Rigaud, he's
Probably.
French, yeah.
Yeah.
The latter reproached the others for being able to do nothing but literature and poetry. Haha, I'm so big brained. Why don't you just kill yourself like me? Indeed, when the young Andre Breton declared that the simplest surrealist act would be to go out into the street and shoot passerbys at random. I've seen a lot of that from certain
Mhm.
uh, communities.
And it's medically assisted. Again, not to take, not to absolve anyone or partially absolve anyone,
Yeah,
but it's almost like there's a pharmaceutical element to the disease and the demon of unbound nihilism.
yeah,
Like you can induce it, and
yeah,
I've experienced this. Have you ever
yeah.
you ever taken like most people this doesn't bother the same way, but if I take Dayquil, I become a mannequin
A
walking
surrealist
through life.
artist.
Dude, it's terrible, and I
Yeah,
might not lose my soul over it, but it's I can't take daytime cough medicine. I just
that's
let me
wild.
die.
Yeah,
So anyway, go ahead. But
and
the world, those people who might go shoot passersby, part
yeah,
of it is the culture from one angle, but they're getting the
yeah,
double whammy because their brain chemistry is also
yeah,
being
yeah,
predisposed to
yeah,
this
for sure.
dark.
And then you also have like the like you said, the cultural aspects being encouraged of
Yeah.
just morality unbound. It's still blowing my mind that he wrote this in 1961. Like,
Hmm.
you know, these guys that he's mentioning here, like, yeah, they'll say things like this, but like if Evola was alive to see what we are going through now, I
Hmm.
wonder what he would have to say about it. Although,
Yeah, and I'm not that Abolition of Man. I remember that C.S. Lewis died on the same day that Kennedy was shot. So that was 62 in November or 63, 62 or 63 in November. And I
mhm,
don't think so. It's likely that this was also prior to or thereabouts when Ride the Tiger was published, or else
yeah,
few years
yeah,
earlier, and it's like the same thing where you could see the precursors to it in the post-war. What we all culturally look everything, all the art that we're given is like, no, everything was bright and sunshiny, like
yeah.
that Tobey Maguire movie where they live in a black and white world. I forget what it's called. It was on TV when I was a kid.
Tobey Maguire.
He's I can't remember what it's called, and like I said, I never watched it, so I shouldn't be referencing it. But I love Lucy and like I said, The Sandlot and stuff,
Yeah,
where it's like,
leave it to Beaver.
right. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean that the swell wasn't rising of these
yeah,
movements. And by
yeah.
the way, you brought up Dottism, and I just spelled it the way I thought it was spelled. And my suspicion was that it's just another word for pointillism, which really is interesting because that's just where they use a bunch of different colored dots. The famous one is the painting that the kids in Ferris Bueller's Day Off in the museum.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Cameron is staring at it. What's ironic to me is when I look at it, I go, "Well, that's beautiful because it's just a different method, but they're still portraying something that's a beautiful scene and has
yeah,
a direct corollary in real life or a correlative, whatever."
yeah.
But for someone, for Evola to be saying, "No, this is."
So real quick, he's talking about Dodism, Dadaism.
Oh, I thought you said Dottism, as
No,
in like an art style.
Dodism. Yeah,
So how do you
Dot
spell that?
Dadi
You just said it, and I wasn't listening. All right, Dottism.
Dadaism.
Yeah, hold on. It says an early 20th century avant-garde anti-art movement. Now let me just see a couple examples. Oh yeah, it's disgusting.
Can you show the camera? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a bunch of haphazard. The camera's up here.
That literally looks like just like clip art, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it in like Marina Abramovic's house.
Yeah, and there was somebody who put a little mustache on the Mona Lisa. There's
Oh, so clever.
yeah, exactly. Like I'm gonna uh crap all over everything that's anything, and it's just yeah. Anyway, it's pretty grotesque in a lot of ways. But anyway, when you said Dottism, I had this whole train of thought that now isn't doesn't make any sense because it's not what you were saying.
Yeah.
But I have to get it out there. That
No, go for
scene,
it. Yeah, go ahead.
which is one of my favorites, where Cameron, who's having an existential episode himself, probably because his dad is like mean to him and stuff, and Ferris is like having the time of his life, and he's got the girlfriend, and Cameron's trying to drown himself in a pool and stuff.
Yeah,
Um, it's funny, but he's in the museum and he's staring at this. I wish I remembered what it was. A famous journalism uh, painting where there's this embankment in front of like a pond, and there's a lady with a parasol umbrella. There's a
yeah,
dog. There's all that stuff. He's looking at it, and it goes back and forth from his face to the painting. And every time it goes back to the painting, it zooms closer in. And every time it goes back to Cameron's face, it zooms closer in.
yeah,
And that cover of "Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want," the Smith song, whatever
yeah,
it's called. I don't know
yeah.
what it's called. And it's a cover by somebody else. It's an instrumental cover. It's the most beautiful scene probably in all cinema history, according to me.
Hey,
Most people would disagree, but whatever. Anyway, the closer it gets to his face, and then they go back to the painting, and it starts showing to where it just looks like dots. It
right.
doesn't look like a thing anymore. So there's nothing between the dots.
Yeah,
And this isn't my original exegesis, which is probably the wrong word, but of the movie, close enough. I watched somebody's video about it and I was truly moved because they were saying that the director, I think it's a John Hughes movie. John Hughes made this scene to show that Cameron was looking into the painting
Yeah.
so that he could see something in it, and he was at the same time trying to look for something in himself. But the closer he looked, he realized there's nothing there holding it together, and it was him
Oh,
like
because it's
self
just dots. Yeah.
right, and it's just the space between the dots, and then you
Yeah.
see his eyebrows begin to furl, and this panic set in, and it's like him saying, "Who am I?"
Yeah.
Maybe that question is just the answer is
Right.
silence. Maybe it
Yeah.
is nothing to me on a bedrock identity level.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was where my brain went when you said Dadaism, but it was just me misunderstanding the word.
No, it's okay. I probably mispronounced it. Again, I'm
Nah,
not
you're
not an art guy. I mean, I love art, but most modern art sucks and yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm
so
good
then he said,
about it here.
yeah. So he says, by absurd and destructive actions, they sought to attain only the only possible meaning of existence. After rejecting suicide as the radical solution for the metaphysically abandoned individual. With the further traumatization brought about by World War II, and with the collapse of a new set of values, the same current was effectively diffused in characteristics and endemic fashion among a youth that regarded itself as burned out or lost. So obviously, big problems when the future of your nation state identifies itself as burnt out and lost.
Mhm.
Something we see broadly throughout the West today. Its broad margin of inauthenticity, pose, and caricature does not lessen its value as a living sign of the times now approaching their final nadir. On, excuse me. On the one hand, there were the rebels without a cause, the angry young men with their rage and aggression, in a world where they felt like strangers, where they saw no sense, no values worth embracing and fighting for. As we have seen, that was the liquidation phase. In the world where God is dead, of those previous forms of revolt, despite everything, and even in utopian anarchism, still had a fundamental belief in a just cause to defend at the price of any destruction and at the sacrifice of one's own life. Nihilism there referred to the negation of the values of the world and of the society against which one was rebelling, not to those of the rebels themselves. But in its current form, the rebellion is a sheer irrational movement without a flag.
Yeah, that's tight.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Like he's
What's
so
that?
hard to talk about. Where it's just like, what am I going to say to this?
It's a lot of efficient precision.
Yeah,
I will say this, that when I reflect on this, through my own personal subjective lens, and I examine my own motivations from especially when I was younger and had more of that ire,
yeah,
more of that flame. Part of it, and it's gonna sound silly, but I'm just being full disclosure here, part of it was that I didn't want to fly a flag that had pre-existed me and was, it's almost like, it's total arrogance. So, the temptation the perennial temptation of the serpent is take of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil for yourself. Then you will be as
yeah,
God because you'll be able to decide spontaneously how to exert your own perfect will. And I'm borrowing here from Crowleyism and like the true will
yeah,
to is like to find out what your true will is. That is your obligation to yourself and to the universe. And it's such nonsense, but and it's such a poison pill like embedded in there,
yeah,
and it's a Trojan horse for to become the slave of demons and all that, right? But I was still subject to this idea that like I wanted to be a rebel, but I also wanted to invent the cause and I wanted to design the flag and I wanted to be that guy.
yeah,
I wanted
yeah,
it to be me,
yeah.
me, me. And
Right.
that's why if somebody said, "Hey dude, Jesus is the way and you just need to follow this narrow path and a straight path." It's like, well, narrow and straight just sounds like me uh having no agency. There's no spontaneity. There's no me. And in the face of a culture, like when you're in elementary school in the 90s and all you hear, you're bombarded on all sides with find out how to express yourself. And that's what makes me, well, me. And it's all about like your true individuality and how you're unique and special.
Yeah. It's priming you for
It's priming you for a Luciferian
occultism. Yeah.
power grab of like, yeah, how do you find out your unique will that's not bound up with any other externalities and no one can tell you not only what to do, but what to be.
Yeah.
But again, going back, stealing the C.S. Lewis, it's like, well, if you keep erasing away layers of your identity to find out what your true will is, you eventually get rid of all defining characteristics. Something can only exist. I know this is going to be philosophically very dubious. It's going to come out of an untrained mouth, but it seems to me that it's a reliable saying that most things are identified by not being to the exclusion of other things as a relief against something else. Like you're a male because you're not a female. That's not exactly true. So again, I'm getting in dangerous waters. There is an essence of maleness that exists unto itself, but you can't define something without drawing its lines. But if you're against lines and borders, then you can't define
Anything.
anything. Like
Yeah.
you can't draw it. If you can't, like the second
Um,
that you identify something, you do it to, that's what I meant to say. The
yeah.
second that you go about defining something, it is necessarily to the exclusion of other things. So you can't be free in all directions. Like you
All the
can't
time.
become
Yeah.
God in that way. You can't fill all things in all places.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the desire that's put in the heart of the youth is like you need to be an ultimate rebel. You need to be beholden to no one and nothing.
Yeah. It's funny you should bring this up. I'm currently working on an article called what did I title it? Universals in a partitions in a universal world.
Yeah.
And it's literally about that. It's about the dangers of taking firm stances and saying, how do I want to word this? There's a meme, a very popular meme on the far right that says, not because you hate that which you're against, but because you love that which you defend.
Mm.
And I'm losing my entire train of thought.
I'm for that if it helps you to regain your train of thought.
I'm glad to hear it.
It's there was a one that just somebody made like stylized to look like medieval calligraphy or something like that, but it said if discovering orthodoxy has made you angrier, then you weren't catechized. You were catechized by the internet and not by the church. And I was like, dude, that's tough for me to hear because I'm only, a little over 3 years exposed to the church at all. And I spent most of that just being upset about the Christian world that's not Orthodox because I just go, this is such an injustice that this is what the masses feel is their only option.
Yeah.
So I think that's still a justified anger, but you should be careful with it because if
Right.
if you take that temptation to become more against something than for something. But it's just tough, and I think it's iterative. You have to like live it, and you have to organically grow through it. You can't just determine yourself to not be more defined by your rejection of something than you are your embrace of the good.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
that probably didn't jog your memory.
No, it didn't, but it's okay. I'll get the article out at some point, and then
Nice.
It can stand on its own. Okay, so he says the heritage of the precursors of European nihilism has largely been translated in these movements of ruined youths into the crude forms of life as it is lived. An important trait here is the absence of any social revolutionary motive and the belief that no organized action can change things. That is the difference from the left-wing intellectuals who condemn bourgeois society and from the nihilists of the past. Work, read, prepare in groups, believe, then have your back broken. No thanks, that's not for me. This is the end result at which the revolution of the left practically arrived after its own triumph, after passing the phase of simple revolt. Albert Camus made it quite plain after a period of his communist illusions. The revolution has betrayed its own origin with the construction of new yokes and new conformisms, more obtuse and absurd than ever. It is not necessary to dwell any further on these testimonies of a traumatized existence, nor on those whom one might call the martyrs of modern progress. As I have said, all that interests us here is their value as symptomatic indices of the times. The forms mentioned here have also degenerated into extravagant and ephemeral fashions, but there is no denying the causal and necessary connection that unites them to the world where God is dead, and no substitute has yet been found for him. When these forms pass, others of the same type will certainly crop up, according to circumstance, until the present cycle is exhausted.
Yeah, he was right, man.
The end of chapter 4.
I'll tell you, it sucks that the enemy is not without a game plan and a contingency, because I'm going to sound like the black pillar here, and maybe I'm stating the ultra obvious, but when people say, well, the bright side is people in the face of the atrocities of the world, like the Epstein stuff and all that, and they're fed up with the absurdism of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, and it's finally everyone wants to come back to tradition. That is a good thing, but you see that there's this like net that's ready to catch them, and it's in the form of TPUSA country singer saying, "I just want to drink my beer," and it's
Yeah.
like the net that's now. Fortunately, there's also this attack on, or there's a strong front coming up against the Protestant Zionist heretical. Not to offend anyone, it just is what it is. Zeitgeist.
You can
There.
say whatever you want. They'll hear it from
Okay,
me
good.
eventually. So
Yeah, but it's not just Protestantism and Zionism. It's a great deception that comes in the form of like spirituality. People, the atheist, the era of the atheists and the postmodernists is passing away. Now everyone's going to be a spiritualist. Well,
yeah,
there's already a net there to catch them, and it's
as
in the
someone
form
who
of
came from that, the atheism thing primes you for the occult. Ask me how I know.
yeah, and I know that it's very in vogue to quote orthodoxy and the religion of the future, Father Seraphim Rose, which our priest called Saint Seraphim Rose not too long ago, and I'm like, nice, that bodes well. Oh, and by the way, my brother asked him, he's like, why'd you say that? And he's like, when you know, you know. And I was like, nice, dude. Anyway, that's awesome. Yeah, that goes so hard. It's 20 years a monk, and it's like, yeah, yeah, no. All right, I'll look into it.
It's got to be Huck.
Did you hear what she said up there?
Yeah.
I did burn some stuff out back, some cardboard boxes with some lighter fluid, and I think it could be still smoldering. So I didn't want to admit that right now because I didn't want to deal with it. But
Gotcha.
anyway, yeah, the whole it's and I've read about it in like Twitter threads and stuff, and I know that it's been talked about. It's not like I'm inventing something new with this, but that the Antichrist religion will be patently Christian, but it'll
Yeah.
be like, hey, this is the real Christianity. Now you have all the facts. We've shown you how the UFO cults and the New Agers and Theosophists and the Buddhists and the Christians all had part of the puzzle, but
Yeah.
now we have the true cornerstone, which is a blasphemy against Christ being the cornerstone.
Right.
They're going to give us a new cornerstone and say, hey, this was the missing centerpiece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
syncretist religion that's going to dazzle everyone, and they're going to have ecstatic revelations, and old men will have visions and young men will dream dreams, but not in the Christian sense. This great new false uh, awakening, all this awakening language since 2020, out of darkness into light. The people who are saying all these things and have all these buzzwords and phrases are ostensibly Christian,
Right.
and they're the ones revealing to you all the Pizzagate stuff and all
Yeah.
that. And what they direct you to is this very
Terrible.
uh, it's a genius deception that is very old. It's, in my view, it's as old as the serpent in the garden. It is
Yeah. Yeah.
a different it's a different coat of paint on the old Gnostic, Kabbalistic, Hermeticist,
Yeah.
New Age, and the list goes on and on and on. All the different things that are the facet of the same Antichrist religion that is always about pursuing the mysteries and ascending to the Godhead by revealed knowledge.
Yeah.
I
Because
burn out.
it's. I mean, if you look at the Greek words for gnosis versus like theosis versus apotheosis,
Yeah.
um, it is it's not Gnostic, um, because it rejects some of the presuppositions of Gnosticism, but it's apotheotheism,
Yeah.
apotheotheism, in the sense that it's like coming as revelation, and all it requires is that you affirm it. That's how you.
Yeah, it's
That's
an
how you
easy,
achieve.
it's the path of it, and that's what will always be the tell, is what's being asked of you. Are you being
Yeah,
asked to lay down your life and to suffer greatly with Christ? Or are you only being asked to get high with us, dog? Like,
yeah,
don't you see
yeah,
how good this feels? Don't you see that you're God and Jesus is within
yeah.
you and
And
you're
that
him and you?
and that's like one of the things so nefarious about like the Reformation Protestant movements is that they require nothing of you. It's literally,
Yeah.
they completely reject works. And you'll have some that like weasel out of it. It's like, no, if you have true faith, then works come
Yeah.
naturally through that. But it's like, okay, but are they necessary? And every time, like, if you can pin them down, every time they'll tell you no. It has nothing to do
Yeah.
with works. It's just confessing the name of Jesus. And then you have like the new Abrahamic Faith Center. Have you seen that?
I've heard about it for years, and I try not to look at it.
Yeah,
I try not to look
that's
past
fair.
the headlines because
It's fair.
it
It's fair.
bothers
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. So you have the Abrahamic Faith Center where you have a mosque, you have a synagogue, and you have a church,
me.
but the church isn't allowed to display the crucifix. They're not allowed to display crosses, and they're not allowed to preach uh, Christ as Christ's forgiveness as redemptive.
Yeah, that's crazy, man, because it's like, I had to say this to my friend last night, because he genuinely, in earnest, he's saying, well, doesn't the Bible say this? Doesn't the Bible say that? But he doesn't realize that he's on a path of that syncretist, occultist. Like, again, it's going to sound arrogant for me saying, oh, I see what he's doing, but he doesn't see it. But it's just true. Like, it's because I don't know, I was reading for a while. Not a lot of stuff, not a lot of good stuff, not that well read.
Yeah, I mean, there's
But
also just like a natural intuition and a natural it's the gift of the Spirit. I'm so
yeah,
glad
and I'm not even
Father don't
claiming
look.
special gifts, but I'll say he was saying, oh shoot, what did you just say a minute ago about, I had to say, dude, I don't know if anyone's ever told you this before, because to me it was a new concept only a few years ago, but that forgiveness is not just one-to-one synonymous with salvation and
Right.
redemption, but that's how it's preached to us in the Protestant paradigm. It's like, well, all that matters is that you're forgiven. You're forgiven, which basically is suggestive that the thing that damns you is God holding something against you.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Like, when you're given that lens, you're going to read the whole Bible that way. And that's why the tradition of the church is like, it's a living thing, and you're either joined to it and protected against heresies, but it's still a tough fight. Like, you're still subject to those attacks,
Yeah.
or you're completely up a creek without a paddle, and you have the sola scriptura plus a bunch of people telling you, like, no, you just need forgiveness, because that way Jesus took the wrath of the Father that was meant for you, and now you're off the hook, but somehow you're going to be joined to the Father, but it's under this pretense that he's being like deceived. He's pulled the wool over his own eyes somehow to not want to send you into a fiery. It's just
Yeah.
problematic in so many different ways.
Discernment. The word I was looking for was discernment. There's like a
Yeah.
natural discerning ability when you're living a sacramental life to go, this doesn't feel right. And someone might
You know
go, well,
why?
why? Why what?
Once you experience the gift of a suffering as penance, once you experience the dryness of spirit that comes with like getting the privilege to suffer for the consequences of your own sins. It's like some people, someone said, I can't remember what it was, but that because Protestants lost the catharsis that comes with confession and penance, they have come up with the Protestant work ethic because it's inevitable. You're going
Yeah.
to end up like they would say, no, I'm not working to absolve myself of sin, but subconsciously, the Protestant work ethic comes from this innate understanding that you must atone. And that's so like scandalous to people because Christ's atonement is the ultimate atonement. And
Yeah.
yet for us to resolve within ourselves, like the kingdom of heaven exists in the heart, but the tortures of hell also exist in that guilt
Yeah.
feeling. There's the book The Trial, which I've never read, and I don't know if it's Kafka or if it's. Do you know who wrote The Trial?
I don't.
There's a guy who's on trial, and the whole book he keeps asking like, "What are the charges?" And people keep finding a way to like hand wave it away, and they're like, "You're at," but he knows he's
It
guilty of
sounds
something.
like Kafka. Yeah. It sounds
Yeah,
like Kafka.
and the same thing with the Camus, the only Albert Camus book that I read. I wanted to find something just as good, and I'm too scared to read his other novels.
L'étrange.
But what's that? The French for the Stranger?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved The Stranger, and we talked about this the day we first met
Yeah.
because everyone kept telling him, "Hey, man, we can get you a good defense, and you might not even be convicted of murder, but we're really interested why you didn't cry when your mom died." And
Yeah.
he's like, "What does that have to do with anything?" And they're like, "Okay, I don't think I can help you."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, dude, your guilt is an emotional problem and you realize you're broken and you can't become a human again until you learn how to mourn. And the Protestant view is like, no, there's no mourning. You don't have to mourn. Jesus paid it all. He said it is finished. You need to not accept any
Yeah.
feeling of guilt, any feeling of condemnation. And it's like hand waving it away.
Yeah.
But you cover that over. It still festers underneath, and you will face judgment, but not from God who wishes to rub it in your face. You will
Yeah.
self-condemn.
That's have you read the Divine Comedy, Dante?
No.
So the last chapter of Inferno, you get to the bottom of hell, and the last circle of hell is where Satan is.
Mm-hmm.
And Virgil leads Dante up to him, and he's frozen in a block of ice. And
I did know that.
Virgil explains to Dante that at any point he could free himself. He's not in here for any reason other than the guilt of what he's done is holding him here, and he'll never break free because he doesn't have the will to rebel again.
Yeah. That's profound. I hate that. Number one, I hate that I haven't read any of the classics, it turns out. Hilariously.
Just make sure you hit subscribe if you like this content. We're gonna go through the classics at some point. I love the classics. I love Dante. It's all up here on the shelf. Building a new office soon, so we'll have more books, and we're gonna go through. I'd like to say all of them, but unfortunately, my lifespan is not long enough to go through all of them.
Yeah,
but we will go through a lot of them.
I'll give you my last word because I got to go figure out who's smoking cigarettes in my house. But the other thing that I hate is that and I hate it because I was just so subject to it. So I feel this sympathy for people, and I feel this like, I don't know, savior complex, which is misguided, but I want to save people out of the things that I was experiencing not 5 years ago.
It's a
Which
natural reaction.
right, but when people used to say, I don't know where everyone got the idea that Milton was scripture, or that the Divine Comedy is Virgil is the writer and it's much more ancient than John
Don,
Milton. Is that what I'm to understand?
Dante's the writer, and then Virgil, the Roman poet who wrote the Aeneid,
He was using
is
him as a
is is showing him through.
gotcha.
Uh,
But Dante wrote it, so but I'm also
yeah,
thinking of Paradise Lost, right?
yeah, that's Milton.
Both of them. So Dante and Milton, people go, look, we got all these misconceptions about heaven and hell and whatever because of these writers, and they think that they're so big brained for saying that ain't scripture, buddy. And then now it's not that I think that Saint Dante or Saint Milton, but the more I hear about it, I'm like, this was true revelation. It doesn't mean that it's
Yeah, it's revelatory of the human psyche and of the human experience,
which
regardless of
has
its validity
which
in the
has
eschaton.
and that's the thing is the human psyche is more overlaid as a reality with the eschaton and the experience of the realm that we're faced with when our soul becomes untethered from our body than anyone ever in the Protestant world supposed. There's nominalism in the sense that your name will be moved from the book of whatever to the book of life, and that's all you need to know. And
Yeah,
you'll go to a place of bliss arbitrarily because you said these words and thought these thoughts and believed
yeah.
these
You
things.
said the Lord's Prayer at
Yeah,
Pastor
you said
Jim
the sinner's
Bob's
prayer,
church.
and it just doesn't
The
it
sinner's
doesn't even
prayer.
pass
That's
the smell test.
yeah,
The smell test says that it's incredibly arbitrary and just seems like the worst writing ever. If God invented that, it's very unimaginative and doesn't even make sense. But then when you learn that, like, no, your psyche is another, that's a big science brain word for your your human part, the inner man, which it consists in infinite depth.
yeah. That in Orthodoxy we call it the noose.
And even I'm not going to be like it may even be more than the noose. I can't speak knowledgeably on this, but the noose being
The eye of the soul, the eye
right,
of the heart, the eye of the
the
heart.
watcher, the the
Yeah,
the the you that watches your thoughts, that
yeah,
can't quite watch itself, but can
right.
be cleansed to perceive everything else. There may be even depths that surpass and transcend the noose,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it gets
I
so
guess there would have to be, not like
yeah,
we'll never show this to Father, but I guess it would be watching those inner yearnings of the heart and the inner yearnings of the
yeah,
psyche
and
in
it
order to
defies
see.
description with human language because of how infinite it is. It's like anyway, that we just stick the word psyche on it and it flattens it and makes it something that you can put in a hardback textbook
Yeah,
from whatever
yeah.
Ghislaine Maxwell's
Oh,
dad
let me grab my
decided.
copy of the DSM so I can diagnose us with all of our mental illnesses from this
Yeah,
conversation. Schizo.
let me take the crown jewel of the cosmos and all time and space, which is the human person, and reduce it to something that we can study the same way that we study how a carburetor works.
Yeah,
It's so outlandish, but
yeah.
we think that, oh, that's simply psychological. And where we draw the boundary between psychology and theology and philosophy and all that, it's a huge mistake. So for us to think that, like, oh, your conscience and all of your hangups and all of your guilt complex has nothing to do with your experience of heaven and hell, it's ridiculous, like on its face. And I just
It is-
wanted to say that.
yeah. I mean, it is fun to dunk on Jordan Peterson, but he did get one thing right when he said that anxiety and depression are a natural response, and it it's directly proportional to the lifestyle you're living. Like
Yeah,
if you have anxiety because you feel like you're forgetting something or you feel like you're missing something,
you probably are
it's
missing.
probably because you are.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So I
and
guess we'll leave it with that,
yeah,
unless you have
100%, dude.
another thing to add to it.
Well, once you said Jordan Peterson, I thought of Pinocchio, and I promise I'll keep it to like 60 seconds. But
Yeah, go
we
for it.
talk about people can write these tomes where you could stack up books on books on books, and it would fill this whole basement. And yet, the meat of it is all there in a Disney movie from whatever, whenever that came out, 50s, early 60s. I don't know when Pinocchio
Yeah.
came out. I can't even
A
guess.
long time ago, probably around the time Ride the Tiger.
Right. But it's a cartoon, and the whole story is there. Geppetto made him, and he loved him. And he loved him so much that he took on Geppetto's life, and he was his sweet boy. But he wasn't a real boy per se, but it was his destiny to become a real boy. And somehow or another, he ended up saying, he got seduced away by that fat Italian smelly freak, whatever his name is, Pastrami or something.
Close enough.
And then he got sold into slavery, and then at some point he ended up on the fun boat with the kids who were drinking and smoking and cussing, and they'd turn themselves into jackasses. And then eventually he through providence, he found his way through a redemptive arc of like uh treachery and despair. He was reunited and became a real boy.
Yeah.
And he became like, that is theosis, becoming a real human being
Yeah.
in the true sense that we don't even like, that we've forgotten since Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah.
It's all there, and I should rewatch Pinocchio. I'm afraid of it, and I haven't watched it since I was a kid, because it's
Also worth noting, he didn't go too far, and he still had his conscience. Good old Jiminy Cricket with him.
always had Jiminy Cricket there as his conscience, and yet we take Jiminy's name in vain every time that we anyway, someone says, "Jiminy Cricket." But yeah, I was saying that because Jordan Peterson wanted to go into this convoluted thing about how he had to be swallowed by the beast in order to save his father. All that may be true, but you don't have to go into that level to
it's deep
like
enough
learn.
on its own. Yeah,
Exactly. And
it's
so
deep
I
enough
thought
on
I'd
its own.
sneak that one in under the wire before we adjourn.
Is a good last slam dunk on JBP. All right, all right, my friend.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yep, likewise. Take it easy. So everyone, we're gonna wrap it here. Make sure you go follow my buddy on Boys World Fashion. I don't know if he's ever gonna post anything on Substack, but for sure EWBSX on YouTube, the White Hodge Twins on YouTube, and then me, Golden Ashes. I'm sure more than one viewer will watch this eventually. I'm gonna send it to every person I know, including my boss. I'm not gonna do that. I might do that. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send it to him.
Do it tonight.
I will. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Stay tuned. We got lots planned moving forward. Good night.